Swami Bodhichitananda ji, you teach seminars on secret of mind control at yoga-vidya
Yes.
in Germany.
Yes.
What is mind control and what are the secrets about it?
Well, when we talk, the word control is a little strong, but all of our Eastern traditions of the Indian Dharma, whether you call it Hindu Dharma or Buddha Dharma, whatever, all of the traditions that we call it Sanatan Dharma, because all of the spiritual teachings that came out of India and spread all over the East and now are spreading all over the world are really fundamentally about the mind, because the only thing that obscures the pure light of the self or the pure light of God manifesting locally here in this jivatman, this individualized sense of self, is the mind. So the mind is kind of like, you can have a beautiful clear sky with one or two clouds going by, or you can have overcast. And most people's minds are either overcast or stormy, you know. So the secret through spiritual practice is to disidentify with these aspects of the mind, disidentify with the thoughts, and through spiritual practice, through pranayama, gradually the mind starts thinning out. We get more space between the thoughts, and gradually the infinite sky, the blue infinite sky, just like Krishna is blue. That's why Krishna is blue, because of the blue sky. So the blue infinite sky of the mind naturally just starts to reveal itself. So India developed all the kinds of practices through thousands of years to make this possible and to make this easy from many, many different angles, you know. On one level, we have the Puranas. On the middle level, we have like the Bhagavad Gita and scriptures like that. And then on the highest level, we have the Vedanta. So all of these are dealing with the different levels of how to approach that. The Puranas are the stories, and most people are not ready to go straight to the absolute reality, to the absolute nature of themselves, because the mind is not purified enough to be able to even comprehend what that means. So the stories of the Puranas are given to prepare people's minds, so then they can start to do some of the other practices, like we find like in the Bhagavad Gita, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and things like this, and the Hatha Yoga tradition. You know, those, the middle is all the practices. And then the highest level is once the mind is become sattvic or subtle and thinned out enough, then there is direct perception of our own nature, and that nature is none other than the absolute nature, is none other than Brahman itself. In the end of the Upanishads, they say finally that the Atman, or what in the West we tend to call the soul, which is not actually a good description of it, but the Atman and Brahman, or the supreme reality of God, in the end it's non-different, because God is omnipresent. If God is omnipresent, there is nothing else. So the whole idea of individuality is the root of all suffering. From that first initial I, then all of the other I's of the mind arise, all of the other thoughts arise, and all the other identifications and stories of who I am and where I come from and all my sufferings and all these kinds of things that we use to build a kind of a composite personality that we identify with. So the East developed these kinds of principles of how to go to the essential nature of who we are beyond time, the transcendent kind of vertical axis. We also have good traditions arising in the West, because in the East, most of the people in a traditional kind of social framework, social structure, like in Tibet and India, they have a good family structure, a good stable family structure where there's a lot of love. So when they grow up as children, they're basically whole in their personality. They're not in a lot of need psychologically. But the West, in its emphasis more on the individual, creates a very much more complex situation, and the personality structure becomes much more sophisticated, and it needs a lot of addressing because a lot of the family structures were fractured when we're growing up. So the West deals with how to address the pathologies of the psyche that we brought with us, the shadow elements a lot, how to heal those shadow elements. And a lot of times we cannot really meditate properly until we address some of those shadow elements and heal them, and then become stable enough so that we can actually sit in silence and have that perception that the East talks about. So we have traditions from both sides that complement each other. And when we put this framework, we've been working on this framework for a while, usually we call this integral psychology or integral spirituality. And there are people, this has been arising in the West for a while, a union of the East and the West. So I think the future, that is the future and of spirituality and of solving a lot of our problems of the future is the integral framework. So I try to address both sides of it within the seminar on the mind control, both the Eastern side, which my training is more in, but also the integral side that's coming in, which is what I've come into in the last few years.